In our series of lectures on management accounting, today we are going to have a discussion on a very important topic of activity-based costing, which is also known as ABC. This is going to be part 2 of our lectures on activity-based costing. In the previous lecture of mine, I told you about the basics of activity-based costing, what exactly it is, and what is the process of allocating overheads to the product, and in between the product and overheads there comes activity. So on the basis of activities we are trying to allocate overheads to the product, and this is what we do in this topic of activity based costing. So in this part 2 of our lectures on activity based costing, the agenda of my today's lecture shall be that I shall first tell you about the activity based costing steps. I shall first be summarizing what are those steps which we have to follow in activity based costing, and then we'll talk about how to apply ABC with the help of practical problems. So it would give you an idea how to solve a practical problem under this chapter of activity based costing. So let us first summarize what we have discussed. What are the steps in ABC. That is what I am going to summarize. I am going to provide you a recapitulation that what exactly we have to do in this topic of management accounting. First of all, what we do is, the first step is that we have to determine the overhead cost drivers, that what are the cost drivers. And if you remember in the very first lecture of mine, when I was telling you about activity based costing, I told you how to identify those cost drivers. It can be machine hour, it can be labor hour, it can be, suppose if your business is of that type where you have different setups, so on the basis of setup also, the setup can also be a cost driver. If you are having a number of purchase orders, there are a number of purchase orders, so on the basis of purchase order, you can determine, you can tell it, you can identify it as a cost driver. So the first very step what we follow here in activity based costing is that we have to we have to identify the cost drivers, that what are those cost drivers on the basis of which I shall be allocating those overheads to a particular activity and then eventually to a product. So after determining this cost drivers, what we do, or for determining this cost driver, what we do is we create different activity cost pools. We have to create activity cost pools for this purpose, and then all overhead costs are allocated to one of the activity cost pools. So whatever cost pool, whatever the activity cost pool you have identified, you have created, you have to allocate those overhead costs to one of the activity cost pool. And after that, what we do, we determine an overhead rate, rather I would say we calculate it. We calculate an overhead rate for each cost pool by using a formula, and formula is very simple. Whatever is the cost of that specific activity, suppose if your activity A is decided that this is my activity A, you will call it as cost in activity cost pool, and then it has to be divided by that particular base, and base is nothing but your cost driver. So we have to first, whatever cost driver, whatever driver of that particular cost or activity you have determined, that is there, which is acting as a base. So we take that cost in specific activity cost pool, and it is divided by the base of that particular cost driver to calculate the rate. And this is the rate on the basis of which we are going to allocate that overhead. We will be telling you how to calculate that, and then how it is being allocated or traced to a particular product. So after determining the cost pool, after determining the cost driver, cost pool, what we do, we calculate the overhead rate. And once this overhead rate is calculated, then that overhead cost is allocated to each product. Now, while allocating this specific overhead cost to every product, we have to keep one thing in mind, that while allocating this cost to every product, just do remember that it must be in accordance with how much of each base the product is using. So suppose if you have 3 cost drivers, you have 3 bases, and your product is using say 10 quantities of driver A, 5 quantities of driver B, and 3 quantities of driver C. So in accordance to the usage, in accordance to your consumption, you will be allocating that overhead cost to the specific product. So we have to keep this thing in mind, that those cost drivers are there, that rate is calculated, and in accordance to the usage and in accordance to the usage of that particular base, the product uses, we have to allocate that overhead cost to a specific product, right? And after that, what happens? We come to know about the cost, that this is my overhead cost, traceable to a specific product. Say if you have 3 products in product line, you are going to allocate it in accordance to their usage. So A, B, C, suppose if you have 3 products, accordingly you will be doing the allocation. Now there is a very pertinent question from the side of learners. Sir, what is the need of having activity based costing? What is the use of it? At times while taking a decision or making a decision, if you don't do the calculation as per activity based costing, at times you commit a mistake. I shall be proving it with the help of some numerical examples, wherein a company has decided to drop out a particular product. You are assuming that this product is not at all profitable for the company, and you have made up your mind that, see, now I'm going to drop this product, or we are going to shut down this particular the production of this particular product. And later on, when you do the calculation as per activity based costing, you realize that you are committing a mistake. So the cost is the same, overhead cost is the same, but somehow due to allocation, you were going to take a wrong decision, and this activity based costing is helping you in rectifying your decision, or I would say rather that it is helping you in taking a right decision at the right time. And in management accounting, what is my purpose? My purpose is that whatever decision I am formulating for my top management, there has to be a quantified logic for that. So with that, there is a question from the side of learners that in what type of organizations we are supposed to use. If we talk about India as a country, increasingly there are companies which are joining this technique of activity based costing. They are increasingly using this as a technique of management accounting. So I'll first be telling you what are those situations where it is advisable, it is recommended to use this activity based costing. So when do we use ABC costing? This is the question in front of us, and the answer to that is, if you are facing one or more of the following conditions, then you must use ABC activity based costing as a tool for your decision making. So these are the situations. You can find presence of one or more than one of the following situations and conditions, and then if it is pertinent, if it is persisting there, if it is present there, then you have to make a decision that yes, I'll be using ABC costing. So first is when your product lines differ in volume and manufacturing complexity. Suppose if you are dealing with 3 product lines. There are 3 product lines. You are a multinational company operating in a country, suppose India, and you are using 3 products. You have 3 product lines, and all 3 product lines, they differ in volume. The quantity is different, and the manufacturing complexity involved into that is also different. So if this is the situation, we would strongly recommend you to apply activity based costing. What is the reason for that? The reason is very simple, because you must be dealing with various activities. Your product line differ in volume and manufacturing complexity. So obviously you must be dealing with different types of activity, and each activity need to be identified from that perspective. So you need to identify the cost drivers for each product line, and accordingly that overhead cost need to be traced or allocated to that particular product in a justifiable manner. So if your product line differs in volume and manufacturing complexity, you must use ABC costing. The second situation is when your product lines are numerous and diverse, and they require different degrees of support services. Your product line is are numerous. They are so different and diverse that they require different degrees of support services. So obviously when your support services are different, the cost drivers must be different, and once the cost drivers are different, you need to apply this ABC as a tool for your decision making. So if even if you are dealing with 2 product lines, and if you are dealing with a product line, numerous product lines where diversity is so much so that they require different degrees of support services, it is recommended to use ABC as a tool. Sometimes it is recommended in that situation also where your overhead cost constitute a significant portion of total cost. Out of material, labor and overheads, there are 3 components of cost which we call in short form as MLO: material, labor and overheads. So if in your if the composition of your total cost is like that it involves it comprises of the significant portion as overhead cost, then you must use this ABC as a tool for your decision making. Reason is very simple, because material and labor, if it is there, it must be specific to a product, but overheads, they are allocated. So if the out of the composition of your total cost, if the proportion of overhead cost is increasingly high on the higher side, you must make use of this ABC as a technique for your decision making. That would give you the better results as compared to the traditional costing techniques. And also, obviously, since we are witnessing the you can say surprising change in the production process, when your manufacturing process or number of products has changed significantly. For instance, if I say that earlier you were very much labor intensive and now you are moving towards the capital intensive automation, then obviously you should make good use of this activity based costing, because your entire process is witnessing significant change. So if there is a drastic change into your manufacturing process or number of products has changed significantly, you must use this activity based costing. It would be more clear to you when we'll be attempting a numerical problem, and there I'll be telling you that, see, here this company is fulfilling this criteria, and cause of that we are making good use of this activity based costing, or we are using this activity based costing, and with the help of result I'll be justifying in front of you that why we use activity based costing, what is the benefit of it. So these were the conditions. If you find presence of any one or more than that into your organization, you must make use of this activity based costing. Now, what is the additional use of activity based costing? Basically, when we talk about the additional use of ABC, there comes a term called activity based management. So it is basically an extension of the use of ABC from a product costing to a comprehensive management tool. Because when I'm telling you I'm talking about ABC, I'm specifically focused towards the product costing. I'm not using it as a comprehensive management tool, but this activity based costing can also be used as a comprehensive management tool which focuses on reducing cost, and not only reducing cost but also improving the processes and decision making. So it also deals with some kind of process re-engineering, where you have to re-engineer your process, you have to drop certain processes which were redundant, and you can go for that. You can take a decision in that direction, that you decide to improve your processes for decision making, and you focus on reducing cost. And when we are using this ABC from that perspective, then it is being called as activity based management. So these are the situations where I told you that we have to use activity based costing. Now it's time for us to go to a numerical problem to have a better understanding of what we do into this activity based costing, the way we have to allocate. So let us have a look at a problem. There is a company called LK Limited. This is going to be problem number 1 of activity based costing. There is a company called LK Limited which has deployed 3 clerks in its accounts department for processing the purchase invoices. So they have to process some purchase invoices, and they have appointed 3 clerks, right? So there are 3 clerks which are appointed in their accounts department for this purpose. And the salary, which is annual salary, which is paid to each of the clerk, is rupees 3 lakhs, and they can process 5,000 invoices every year. So the target is that they'll be processing 5,000 invoices every year, right? Now we have to look at some other information. In addition to this salary, the company is spending rupees 9,000 per annum on account of forms, postages, etc. With this assumption that 15,000 invoices are to be processed in a time of 1 year. So there is an assumption that you are spending 90,000 rupees on account of forms, postages, etc. in addition to salary, and expectation from you is that you will be processing 15,000 invoices every year. Now during the year 2022, a total of 12,500 invoices were processed. So in this company, 3 clerks, what they did, they processed 12,500 invoices, and the key point is the expectation was that they should process 15,000 invoices, right? Now what is required from us? They are asking us to calculate the activity rate for the purchase order activity, and we have to break the activity into two components, one is fixed and variable component. So first of all, we have to calculate the activity rate, which was the second step after identifying the cost driver. Here they have given you the cost driver, which is purchase order activity. So cost driver is already given in the question. We have to determine the activity rate, that is the second step. And then we have to segregate them into fixed and variable. After that, we have to compute the total activity availability, and then again they expect from us to offer a segregation of activity usage and unused activity, that how much you used and what is the unused activity. So we have to also calculate the total cost of resources supplied. So with this, these three requirements, we have to attempt this question, right? So cost driver is already known to us. Now we shall be proceeding with the solution of this question. So let us solve. So first of all, what I have to do is I have to calculate the activity rate. Very simple. Cost of salary, I'll be calculating. The number of clerks which were appointed there in this organization were 3, and the per annum salary was 3 lakh. So I have to calculate the cost of salaries. Very simple. We will be multiplying the annual salary of one clerk with the total number of clerks, that is 3 lakh into 3, and it gives me a value of rupees 9 lakh. So 9 lakh rupees is my total cost of salary. In addition to that, there was another information in the question that apart from salary, you will be spending certain amount on account of forms, postage, etc., and that is rupees 90,000. So if you ask me, sir, what is the total cost? Very simple, 9 lakh plus 90,000. My total cost comes to be 9 lakh 90,000. I hope it is clear. So 9 lakh is my salary and 90,000 is my expenses on forms and postages. Very simple. So total cost we have computed, right? Now I have to first understand number of invoices to be processed annually. What is expected? If you recall from the question, number of invoices which these 3 clerks were supposed to process was 15,000. So very simple, 15,000 they were supposed to process. So if you ask me how to calculate the activity rate, very simple, total cost divided by the number of invoices to be processed. So here my cost driver is number of invoices which you are processing. So total cost is 9,90,000, and when I divide it by the number of invoices to be processed annually, that is 15,000, it will offer me the activity rate. What is the activity? The processing of invoices. So my activity is that these clerks have to process those invoices. So if I solve it, I get a value of rupees 66, and this is my activity rate, and I would be calling it as rupees 66 per invoice. So point 1 of the requirement of the question is now attempted. We have computed the activity rate. Now after this, the question was expecting us to provide a segregation, offer a segregation of fixed and variable cost. That will do, but activity rate is calculated like this, rupees 66 per invoice. Now we have to find out what is the fixed activity rate and what is variable activity rate. So fixed cost was rupees 9 lakh, that is salary, divided by 15,000. It will give me the fixed activity rate, that is rupees 60 per invoice. Now when I am saying that rupees 9 lakh is fixed, why I am saying that? Because it is actually the salary of the staff which we were paying. So regardless of their activity, the salary has to be paid. So 9 lakh divided by the 15,000, it will give me the fixed activity rate, which is rupees 60 per invoice. After this, I'll calculate the variable activity rate, and it is nothing but variable cost divided by number of invoices to be processed. So 90,000 rupees was cost, and then divided by 15,000, it will give me a value of rupees 6. So out of 66, if you ask me about segregation, the fixed activity rate is rupees 60 per invoice and variable activity rate is rupees 6 per invoice. So I hope it is clear to you how to calculate the activity rate and then segregate them into fixed and variable. Because sometimes in your examination question, we expect from you to do the calculation like this, that you have to first calculate the activity rate and then offer a segregation. Now the second point was that what is the availability of activity and activity usage and unused activity. This was another expectation from the question, that you have to not only calculate the activity usage but also report unused activity. So very simple, 15,000 invoices you were supposed to process. You processed 12,500 invoices as per the question, and remaining 2,500 invoices is nothing but your unused activity. Now you must be thinking from where I got this value. It is nothing but a differential value between the available activity and activity usage. So 15,000 invoices we were expecting the 3 clerks to process, but they processed 12,500 invoices. So unused activity is 2,500 invoices, right? Now reason can be any. There might be a possibility that your company is not having, your organization is not having those many invoices. So that reason is not mentioned here. So we will not go into that detail that what is there, but here we have to first understand what is my unused activity. Now the third point was that we have to calculate the cost of resources supplied. Now there are multiple ways to calculate, rather 2 ways to calculate, but I'll be focusing on both the ways, both possible ways. Suppose my total cost is 9 lakh, very simple, plus 9 lakh rupees is my fixed cost. If you ask me what is my cost of resources supplied, I would first go ahead with the salary. Regardless of number of invoices to be processed, my salary of my clerks will remain the same. That is why I have written here rupees 9 lakh. But for remaining the cost, that is the variable cost or overhead cost, we have to first understand how many invoices they processed. Answer is 12,500. And what is the variable cost rate? We have just computed that in the previous discussion, 6 rupees per invoice. So we shall be multiplying 12,500 invoices with that of rupees 6, and it will give me the value of the variable cost on the basis of variable rate. Since we have identified the variable rate, we can very easily calculate the cost of it, and it comes to be 75,000. And if you ask me what is the total cost of resources supplied, it is very simple, 9,75,000. So we have computed cost of resources supplied like this. So once you have rate, you can do the calculation for any number of invoices, right? So it is always good to first calculate the rate, and then after that you can calculate the cost of resources supplied. Now this cost of resources supplied can also be calculated in a different manner. So there is an alternate way also. Sometimes in examination you are calculating it like this, and your other counterpart is solving it in some other manner, but both are correct. So let me show you the alternate way. Very simple. Here what we do is we calculate the cost of resource like this: cost of activity used plus cost of unused activity. Now cost of activity used, if you ask me, for 12,500 invoices, the entire cost is being incurred. Whether it was fixed cost or it was variable cost, it is calculated. That is why if you see here what we are doing, we are multiplying 12,500 invoices with that of rupees 66. So for this entire cost is being incurred. So we are not doing any segregation like fixed or variable. We are straight away putting here in front of you 12,500 invoices into 66. But for remaining 2,500 invoices, do remember that variable cost shall not be incurred. Because if there is no production, if there is no processing, obviously cost is not there. So 2,500 into 60, this will actually give me the cost of unused activity. For this I shall be incurring the fixed cost only. There is no expenditure on account of variable cost. So what we'll do, we'll multiply 2,500 into 60 to arrive at this value, which comes to be 8,25,000 plus 1,50,000, and it is giving me the same answer, 9,75,000. So if you remember, in the previous point what we did, we went as per the rate, and here what we are doing, we are actually doing the calculation like this. 12,500 invoices we took, and since it is for these invoices have been processed, so fixed and variable both costs have been incurred. So we are allocating, we are multiplying it with rupees 66 to arrive at this cost, which comes to be 8,25,000. And for remaining 2,500, what is happening? Here we are multiplying it with rupees 60, and cause only 60 rupees is being incurred, reason is very simple, it is fixed cost. So we have multiplied 2,500 into 60, and we have arrived at a value of 1,50,000. So both the learners, both the examinees are right in their own perspective. Some students find this way to be easy, and whereas some others find the others to be easy. The choice is entirely yours. Whatever way suits you, you can do the calculation, but do remember both the methods are giving us the similar calculation, right? The similar value, that is 9,75,000. So this was actually expected from us in this question of activity based costing, where what we did, we were provided with the cost driver, so there was no need to identify the cost driver. So we first identified the cost driver, and then what we did, we calculated the rate, and according to the rate we have allocated the overhead to it. So I hope this question is clear to you. This was a very simplest example of activity based costing, the way we calculate the rate and it is being attributed to a particular product, right? So I hope you must have understood this question of activity based costing. In another lecture of mine, I shall be discussing some more, coming up with some more questions for you. I hope you must have enjoyed today's lecture of mine. Thank you so much.